what makes you uniquely you? Like, where did you come from? What was the idea behind your business, or who founded your property, and how much has gone into all of that? And I think storytelling really brings that across in a way that really speaks to your target audience. So not just focusing on some dry facts, but bringing in a more emotional component as well, and really getting through to the people you want to listen to.
Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast with me, Michael Tinkser. We at Hospitality Mavericks are here to inspire leaders to create heart-centered and profitable businesses from the inside out, the kind that both employees and customers love and support. And I believe that great storytelling is one of the most powerful tools in a leader's toolbox for driving an organization forward. And not only when it comes to create great business results, but also making a positive impact on its people, the community they're part of, and the planet. And today's conversation, where we're going to be talking about storytelling, and we have a real expert and a force of nature to help us with that. Juliana Hahn. Juliana is a content creator and copywriter specializing in writing for the hospitality and tourism industry. Before she dived into the world of copywriting, she studied hotel management and worked in hotels around the globe. So she knows the industry from the inside out. We talk a lot about how you as a business can stand out by using storytelling. But we also take a deep dive into why it's so important to have a different and unique story that you're telling. Because if you don't have one and you don't tell it, then you're just a commodity. And we all know the only thing that drives the commodity is price. Juliana shares some great insights in how you use your storytelling on your website as a key for restaurants and hotels that want to transfer bookings from third-party platforms into their own platforms. There are lots of very concrete tips and advice for any business that are preparing to come back after the pandemic. So if you want to have more Maverick insights into your inbox, please sign up to our weekly newsletter on hospitalitymavericks.com. But for now, please grab notebook, coffee, and be ready to learn more about how you build stories that boost your sales. Today we are having a very special guest because we're going to be talking about something I would say I've become quite passionate about over the years. It's storytelling and how you actually tell your purpose as a business to your customers. And for this, I've actually invited somebody that's worked globally in hospitality and does that still with helping companies to do better storytelling through their website, through their emails, through their social media, and so on. So it gave me great pleasure to welcome Juliana Hahn all the way from, I think it's Germany, Munich. Is it? That's correct?
Actually, I'm based in Mainz right now.
Okay, you're in Mainz. Okay, you see. Well, that's also a beautiful place
It is.
from traveling Germany in the past. So, Juliana, for people that doesn't know who you are, that some people would know you because you have a business that working with storytelling. You've done your own business for 5 years, but you also have a long career in hospitality past that. Could you give people like an elevator pitch of what is your story and what are you doing now, and what kind of uniqueness do your company provide to your customers?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having me on today. And to give a quick intro about what I do, I'm a copywriter for the hospitality industry. I used to work in hotels in many different countries, including Jordan, France, the Caribbean, and Thailand, before I switched into writing copy for hospitality companies. So that includes writing blog posts, writing customer success stories, helping with social media, and all the other things you mentioned. And yes, it's very important to have your storytelling lined up properly, and to practice storytelling properly to really engage your target audience and get your point across.
What is it that, when you work with a client, Diana, because like people say, oh yeah, storytelling is that thing about, doing some web copy and so on. But what is it that make the outcomes you do with your clients unique compared to to many others? What is it that you unique about in your business?
Well, I, for one thing, have a background in hospitality. So I actually worked in hotels. I understand how the hotel itself is set up, how it works, who you need to contact if you need to get certain things done within a hotel, which departments you need to speak to, and all of that. And then when I work with clients, for example, in the hotel tech industry, I can bring that knowledge to the table. So I would know how to address your potential client who might be a revenue manager or a sales manager or maybe a front office manager who is interested in your product. And so if they look at your product, what are their pain points, right? What do you need to address in order to actually get them interested in what you're selling? And then another thing I think that's important is you don't just want to get them interested and excited about what you're selling, but you also want to give them the tools and the knowledge to then kind of sell your product to their superiors, because in a lot of cases, maybe the person that would be using your product is not the one actually signing off on the purchase decision. So they would also need to know how to maybe convince their manager or the next person that's a level up on why your solution is so amazing. So I think it's important to bring that in. And then if I work for hotels, I also have experience, as I mentioned, working in hotels, working with guests. So I think it's important to know, how do you address your guests to engage them, right? Your website is not necessarily just for you as the hotel. It's actually for the guests you want to convince to stay at your hotel. So I think it's important to always approach your copy and your writing or any of your online content really from the perspective of, who are you talking to and how can you best speak to them to really be on their level, on their wavelength, and get through to your audience.
So for people out there that storytelling is a bit like one of those words, purpose or sustainability. It become a bit wishy-washy sometimes. But what is actually storytelling? What is your definition of storytelling?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Well, for one thing, I think it's introducing your company and then creating more of a narrative around it. So it's not just like, okay, we're a certain company and we have this product that we're selling, or we're selling this room, but what makes you uniquely you? Like, where did you come from? What was the idea behind your business, or who founded your property? And how much has gone into all of that. And I think storytelling really brings that across in a way that shows who you are and what you do in a way that really speaks to your target audience. So, not just focusing on some dry facts, but bringing in a more emotional component as well, and really getting through to the people you want to listen to.
Yeah, and it is super interesting now because I've also dived into this subject over the last couple of years. Because not because I was thinking I have to be good in storytelling to actually to sell more. It was actually because I thought it was a very important skill as a leader to be able to talk about the culture and why the culture is what it is and why it's important we follow the values and beliefs. And one of the things one of the way I also interpret it is a bit like you saying, is the seed. Your purpose is the seed, and the storytelling is the ability to talk about the purpose of the business and why you put it in place, or the organization. And that then on the back end of that, you come your beliefs and behaviors, which is your culture, uh, is created on the back of that. And I think that's why it's important as a leader to be able actually to tell stories, also because, as you say, you connect with the narrative. You talk to the heart instead of the head. And I guess it's important. I don't know how you look at it, but I guess it's important to talk to the logics, but also to the emotions of people when you're using it as trying to connect with them and to grow sales or make your business better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's nice how you mentioned that, to speak both to the logic and the emotional part. Like, your logic might be all the features you offer, right? All the great things that your hotel has to offer its guests, or the great features your tech solution has. But there's always an emotional thing behind the desire to have a certain feature, right? Usually, it's the desire to solve a certain problem, or to just improve maybe something about your operations or about your business. And I think it's key to identify the emotion that's behind it and then bring that together, this emotional and logic approach. And I think you can use storytelling for that very, very well. And I like how you also brought in that storytelling is important for leadership, because your story isn't just for the outside, so your clients or your guests, but it's also important for the inside, so your internal stakeholders, be that investors or your team members. Because I think if you create a strong story that your staff and your investors can identify with as well, you can create a stronger team that works better together and that knows what goal or purpose they're working towards. And that gives people more of a sense of direction, I think. So even internally, good storytelling is really important.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because that's something we have worked with, and we created like a workshop. We worked with a couple of clients on I wouldn't say creating their purpose, like I would say clarifying their purpose. Actually, sometimes going back and looking at why was it actually we set this up? Why are we doing that? Because often when you're in a growth situation, you open X amount of restaurants in this example, you lose that a bit because suddenly it just becomes about opening, and they forget about why did we actually set it up? Oh, we set it up because we're not just a restaurant, we're something about a community. But the interesting things, when they got that clarified internally, it was much easier for them to actually to revisit their culture as well and find out. And what we have learned with that is that this storytelling internally is, if not more important, equally as important as marketing, because they go hand in hand. Because if you're telling a story to the customer about some kind of experience that can happen and they come and discover something else, there's a mismatch between those two.
Yeah, I think that's where storytelling can also help you address the right target audience and really draw in the people that match your product or your hotel, and possibly even weed out the ones that don't. Because, like you said, if there's, for example, a mismatch, you have a story that makes a certain promise, and then someone comes to your hotel or buys your product and it doesn't deliver on that promise, then for one thing, yeah, they'll be upset, and you might lose that client or you won't get repeat business. But also, if you manage to tell your story well, some people will see, okay, this is not for me, and then you can avoid having this dissatisfied client or this dissatisfied guest. So in that sense, I think it's also important.
It's interesting you're saying that exactly. You have to choose because so this is like maybe a bit of a generalization, because in my view, a lot of businesses, not only in hospitality, are trying to be something for everyone. But you're saying that it's not about being something for everyone. It's about being something for the people that actually connects with your story and purpose, because then it's much easier to satisfy them, and actually the opportunity for repeat sale is bigger. That's very interesting. Yeah, and I think a lot of people are focusing on, we just need a lot of customers instead of focusing on the one they already have and maintain that relationship and tell the story again and again. I don't know if you've seen this often when people start doing storytelling, they do it a couple of times and it goes really well. They get some really good response of it. And then they change the story instead of continue repeating the same story, which I sometimes say, well, you have something that works here. Oh, but yeah, we need to change. We need to change directions. The story have changed as well. We need to communicate something else to the customer. No, but they came because they like that story, and not everybody have heard your story. So I don't know what is your view on that. I believe you have to continue repeat the same story and be true to it all the way through.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually, because if you are marketing your business, right, and you've, like you said, you've created the story, you got some good responses to it, after some time, you might feel like, oh, I've said this so many times. I'm sure people are getting bored of it and they don't want to hear the whole thing anymore. But like you said, firstly, people came to you because they heard that story and they liked it. And if they were happy with your service, they'll keep coming back. And then also, if you're looking for new guests or new clients, they probably haven't heard your story yet. So it's good to keep repeating it. Like, not everyone will see every website update or every social media post you make, even if they're already following you. Not everyone sees every single update. So that's why it's important to keep pushing out the same or very similar things on your social media or your website or whatever channels that you're on. And That doesn't mean that your story can't grow and evolve as your business does, but I think you still should be clear on what is the origin point and what is really the core that you want to focus on and get across. And yes, you can add to that, and maybe if your business shifts at some point, then you need to incorporate that. But I definitely think it's important to avoid like jumping back and forth around a lot, because that'll just confuse people, and in the end no one will really know anymore what you're about, and that can alienate your target audience.
And I think you said something that's really interesting there, because there's some, even in hospitality and not in hospitality, there's just some businesses, they are so good at telling their story, it becomes, I call it shareable. Like, I will share that story about that business. I shared a business with you before we went on. It's called the Do Lectures in Wales, and they have really connected with me here and here, but actually first here. I didn't go on their website because of their product. I'm buying some of their products now. But I actually went because somebody else says, "Oh, you would really like them. They are really aligned with your values. You should go and read their manifesto." And I read their manifesto, and that was it. Then they could sell me whatever they want, because we are so on wavelengths about how we see the world. And I think there's a lot of companies that creates a story from a commercial point of view, instead of thinking about how can I make it shareable? How would people in 20 years time share that story? And we all know the companies people share stories about, or they're in business books. You have, the Apple, you have Southwest Airlines, Whole Foods, because they had like in really, really purposeful story, they planned it in the beginning of their journey, or it discovered it early on their journey.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point actually, that you want to make it shareable, because that will help you with your word of mouth, I think, because you'll have your existing fans, your existing clients, and then if your story remains the same and if they talk about you, people will hear what their friends or colleagues say, and then they'll check you out and they'll see, okay, it aligns with what my friend said, like what your company says about itself aligns with what they might have heard from someone else, and then that already creates a kind of sense of trust before you even start doing business, or before there's a booking, or maybe even before someone's starting to research a trip. But then at least your hotel will kind of be in the back of their mind next time that becomes relevant for them. So I think that's a really good point to make it shareable, and then hopefully also encourage people to share, right, to get them to get out the word about your business.
Is storytelling, in your view, is that something you can create? Is the quick wins, or is it long term focus you need to have when you're working with storytelling?
Well, you definitely need a long term perspective, right? Because if you start telling your story, it might not be that you find or you get in front of the right audience from day one and immediately hit home. So once you create your story, you might have to refine it a bit. You might have to fine tune it, switch up the wording, or switch up the points that you focus on to see what part of your story resonates most. And then as you start refining that, you can kind of drill down on those points and keep going more and more into that. That kind of goes back to the point we mentioned about refining your story and letting it evolve. Like, you see what works best for you, and then you stick with that and keep going in that direction. So I think, yeah, at the beginning it can be maybe an instant success if you're lucky, but I think the best stories are really the carefully crafted ones, and the ones that you give time to unfold and develop.
Yeah, and I often say it's a bit like a muscle. If you don't train the muscle, it gets weak. And the same goes to your story. And if your story gets weak, your culture get weak, and thereby your organization get weak, and thereby you will see some companies disappear because they've lost that initial purpose through the story that's not told anymore. It's quite interesting. I don't know how what your view is on as well. I see, that's a lot of focusing on digital marketing in the moment and getting your word out. And sometimes I feel it feels a bit like they have lost the focusing on actually communicating who they are and why they're here, but they're focusing on their product. the room, the plate of food, which is it's important to showcase these kind of things. But they forget sometimes, the humans behind the business, which is actually what we connect with as human beings. Human beings buy from people they like.
I mean, you can't really get away from digital marketing these days, right? It's something that pretty much every business does or needs to do in order to get out there, get the word out, and become successful. But I think you can actually combine that really well with a human aspect. So when you're promoting your hotel or your company, you can showcase the people who are providing the service or creating the product. So if you're a tech developer, then showcase the people who are coding your tech solution, or showcase the customer success team that helps out your clients on a day-to-day basis, and like put these people in your story and feature them. That's like not only a good thing for your to give your company a face and to show people, okay, there's actually real people working there. It's not just a name or a logo that I'm dealing with. It's also great for your staff because they're seeing that you appreciate them, that you publicly show, okay, this person is working for me and I'm proud to show the work they're doing. So that, I think that's also something important. And even for hotels, it's the same thing. Like you can feature your head chef, right? There's such a big culture around your Michelin star chefs, for example, right? Hotels will create like a whole separate page on their website to feature their chef. They'll have print materials about that. You'll see that chef's name everywhere on the property, but it doesn't have to be a huge celebrity to be featured. I think like you can feature people who are maybe more behind the scenes that guests don't really see on a day-to-day basis, but whose jobs are still extremely important for a hotel. So why not give those people a voice and a face and show them in your communication and make them part of your story too?
That's super interesting, yeah, because I think also, if I just remember some people here during the pandemic in the UK, there's a company called Honest Burger. They actually use their employees a lot to tell about, not only what they did for them, but also what they were going through as employees in the hospitality industry. And it's quite interesting the traction they got from that, and the response and the way people engage with that. Because again, it was storytelling in principle. It was Tom that worked in this restaurant, and there were some things he struggled with right now, and this is what he was trying to do at work, and it was just interesting. There was no product, but you knew it was Honest Burger that was doing it.
Well, I think especially now that's a really cool idea because um, maybe people have their favorite restaurant or hotel that they can't go to right now. But if that place then shares something on their social media or on their website about, hey, this is how our staff is doing right now, and really like your frontline staff, not necessarily the managers or the owners, but actually the people that your guests would see when they go to that hotel or restaurant. I think that gives them a great chance to stay connected. And like you're saying, you don't have to push a product at that point. You can really just be telling the story of these people. And I think especially today, we can all identify with someone who might be worried about their job, or someone who's struggling with managing homeschooling and going to work, or maybe having a reduced income, because so many people are experiencing that. So you're creating some strong common points among people, and like putting your brand in their mind for a later point in time.
There's no doubt about, like, getting clarity around your story and telling it well. That's definitely a benefit of business. But what is that the outcomes you can achieve? What are like the greatest outcome you can achieve as a business? What have you seen with the businesses you work with, and also what you experience through your career when this really comes together and works for people?
Well, if you do your storytelling right, there's actually a whole bunch of great outcomes you can get from that. Um, I mean, for now, it can be a bit difficult to tell companies, especially hotels, like do more storytelling to get more business or to sell more rooms right now, because in a lot of places, the business hotels can do is actually restricted legally because of travel bans or because of restrictions on leisure travel and things like that. But I think now is a very good time to drill down on what should your story be? What do you really want to share about, or what do you really want to focus on as a company, what do you want to tell people about yourself, and what do you want people to think of when they think of your business, and then use that to build this story, and then be kind of in the forefront of people's minds when they can travel again. So I think if you get your storytelling lined up properly, then you can you have a much easier time addressing your ideal target audience. You'll have an easier time of getting in front of them, convincing them. You'll spend less time and less money on pushing more and more new new ads or new marketing initiatives, because I think, like what we already mentioned, is your story becomes more share worthy. So the clients you attracted, because they're your ideal target market, they will really love your product, and you'll probably get more positive word of mouth out of those clients, rather than having someone who kind of sort of fits your target audience, and then they're not dissatisfied, but they're also not wowed by you, so they might not really tell friends about it. But if you get people who absolutely love what you have to offer and you wow them, then they will tell everyone they know about it. And a few of those people might then come to you. And I think you can actually let your clients really help you with your marketing in that sense. So I think that's one way to really get a lot out of storytelling. And then also it helps you save time and energy on your marketing, because you become very clear of what you want to do, where you want to communicate, and you can focus on those channels and on those messages, instead of kind of being present everywhere and trying to do everything and then really not doing anything at 100%. So I think that can also be really relevant right now, with a lot of hotels having reduced staff. Maybe your marketing department has had to let go of a few people, right? Like that's quite possible now. So having this clear focus will help even a smaller team get a great impact.
Yeah, and I think it's quite interesting because I always I have a slide in one workshop I do within. It's probably a bit more about leadership than storytelling, but it's like clarity equals bigger influence. Because when you are absolutely clear of what your mission is, your purpose, whatever it is, it's much easier to filter what not to do. And the not to do list is so important in these times, because there's a lot of things you could do, but what is exactly that serves the story? And actually, I like what you said as well, like the importance of investing in tomorrow. Often in whatever we do as human beings, we're always focusing on the short term instead of planting the seeds for the long term impact, because our business also have to be here tomorrow and hopefully also the next decade. So how do we actually plant the seeds today that will actually make it stay in business in 40 years time? And it's interesting, some of the most successful businesses did that, unconscious or conscious. They did some things or behaviors around they do as business maybe way back. I think Marks and Spencer in the UK, during the war, they helped the soldiers in the Second World War get brilliant uniforms for free. And that's a story people keep on talking about when they have told me about Marks and Spencer. I'm not from this country, but people have told me this story. So they planted a seed at that time. Again, it's just interesting how such a simple gesture becomes like something that carries the brand through decades. And that's the power of storytelling in a way, because people can remember that, but they can't remember what kind of product you put on the shelf last week.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's difficult now, of course, to tell people, oh yeah, you need to invest in tomorrow and focus on later. And when many hotels are without a doubt struggling with cash flow and with negative pickup and all these horrible things they've had to deal with over the past months, and not being 100% sure about when or how they'll be able to do normal business again. But I think it's still extremely important to focus on this, on the pickup we will hopefully see soon down the road, and to be ready for that and to be able to take as much advantage of it as possible. Like if you're ready for it from the get-go, then you can be one of the first properties to truly benefit from travel returning, and then actually getting those extra bookings and being able to get back to normal perhaps faster than someone who neglected that right now.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting. It is a different connection where I work with people. I've said in this period, it's of course important to show up better when we open. You can always become better, your procedures, operation, but that's a given. I expect you work with that, pandemic or no pandemic. But actually, the most competitive thing you can do right now is show up different, so people can actually see you've been on a journey as well, and tell that why you are different and what your uniqueness is. And actually, that's more competitive advantage than becoming better at, yeah, using technology to book rooms and so on. Yeah, that's important, but that's a given. That's business innovation in itself. So super interesting what you're saying there. I totally agree on that. So one of the other things, Juliana, we have discussed before is, one thing is storytelling, and we touched on that now. But a lot of people also their websites, they have a website. Every business has a website, but some is more powerful than others. And what is your experience in general with websites when you've been working with clients, things like that? How is that perceived of importance? Because again, I talked about the focus on digital marketing, but my belief is a bit counterintuitive. I think sometimes we spend maybe a bit too little time on our websites, and I'm guilty of that myself because actually that's the airport. I said that's where people land in the end.
Your website is probably your best or your main salesperson, if you think about it in terms of addressing clients, showcasing your company, your product, your offering, and I think you should treat it as such, right? Like if you have a sales team at your hotel or for your company, then you would want to give them the best tools you can so that they can bring in as many leads and convert as many leads as possible, right? Like um, you wouldn't give them a slow computer or maybe a phone that doesn't have an internet connection so they can't message people or things like that, right? You wouldn't hamstring them in that way. So why not give your website the same treatment, right? Like your salespeople have an expense account; they can take out a potential client. So why not also invest some money in your website to update it regularly, right? You don't just do a website once. It's not a static thing. Like it's a lot of work actually if you think about it, because there's always something new to update. Maybe you want to change your imagery seasonally. Maybe you need to upload new promotions for different seasons or different holidays that you want to feature, because you don't want to have your Valentine's promotion up in December when you're actually trying to promote Christmas, or still have your Easter weekend promo up when the summer holidays are starting, right? Like you need to regularly go back and update that and keep it current, because your website is really one of the first places that you have to showcase yourself, to show who you are, what you do, and to get in front of clients. Like if you think about hotels, people might find you via a booking engine, but even if they see your name there, they'll probably go and Google your property first before they book on booking.com or whatever. So if they look for you on Google and find your website, you have a great chance to actually get them to book direct instead of going back to whatever booking engine or whatever OTA they just came from. So I think you really need to seize that opportunity and make your website your absolutely best salesperson that you have on your team.
And super interesting because, again, when we make these buying decisions, we are looking for, touch points of either proof or can I trust it? Because, again, booking a holiday, or for some people, maybe it's something they do once a year. It's a special occasion and they want to get it right. So the more you can convince them they are making the right decision through your website, yeah, the bigger is the chance they will follow through with it. And I think it's absolutely right when you say that thing when you land in there, it should help building the trust. If they then go and book somewhere else, that's what it is. But there's it's actually about, and if you then also can, I guess, from a hotel's point of view, if you can get the booking through your own website, even better.
That's the thing. If you can get them to book with you anyway, then why not encourage them to book via your website, right? And I think a lot of hotels really give away a lot of business, whether it whether it's to an OTA where they then have to pay commission on a booking that they could have gotten commission free through their website, or they just give the booking away altogether to another property because the website doesn't convey this message properly. It doesn't captivate the people that come to their website. So I think that can have several reasons. Maybe they didn't have their storytelling figured out properly. So maybe on social media they were doing one thing, and their Instagram or their Facebook is fantastic and people love it, and then they click through to the website, but it's not a consistent experience, and they land on the site and it's like, wait, that's not what I expected, and then they bounce and they're gone. Or maybe the photos on the OTA were fantastic and the description on the OTA was great, so people just want to like check once again just to be sure. They have a look at the website, and then when they're there, maybe the pictures aren't that good, or maybe just the whole setup isn't really working for them, and they think, no, maybe we'll take the other property that we saw. It's just down the street and it also looks nice. So I think there's really a lot of room for improvement for a lot of properties to create a very consistent experience, and to not like lose people along this booking journey, to really draw them in via their website and then encourage them to book direct to generate the maximum revenue they can from every booking.
When you then land on the website, what is like your top advice people could do to actually build that trust, besides having, pictures of the rooms and so on? Is there other things you can do with your website where you can work on building that trust when you got the foundation in place, a good website, great pictures, the right pitch, the right story? What else can you do to really get people convinced they're making the right choice?
Oh, there's a few pretty straightforward things you can do, actually. For one thing, you could feature guest reviews on your website. You can have them there on your homepage. You can do that in different ways. Like maybe you screenshot things from TripAdvisor or from Google reviews, for example. Or you can probably even get plugins that just pull the latest reviews regularly as they come in, so people can see like your latest reviews as well. Like you don't want reviews from 1, 2, or 3 years ago. It's probably better to have more recent ones. So feature that. That's always a good thing. And then another thing you can do is if you've ever won any prizes, like did you get TripAdvisor's Hotel of the Year, or were you featured in some media, right? Like you have your Condé Nast Traveler, for example, they give awards every year, or maybe your local tourism authority chose you as the top mountain resort in your region or your country. Like any kind of accolade you have, I would absolutely put that on your homepage or in any other relevant place. Maybe if you're certified a climate neutral business, put that on your website, because there's people who choose hotels based on such criteria. Or maybe you were named one of the top family or pet friendly hotels, or like really anything that would speak to your target audience and that you've been publicly recognized for. Put that on your website so people know, and maybe include a link to that media mention as well, so that people can actually read up on the article and see that you're not just inventing things, that it's actually true. I think that's another really good thing to do. And then once you've kind of built this trust by showing people, you can also have like a live chat. I think that's a really great tool to have on your website. So if someone has gone through your page and they've seen a whole bunch of things they like, but maybe they have 1 or 2 questions, and either they don't have the time, or they can't find the information, or they're too lazy to look for it, have that chat there so they can just type in that question. And then maybe you have a bot, maybe you have a person sitting there at the other end to answer it, and answer that question as quickly as possible. That's a great way to show, okay, we're interested in your business, we're here for you, we're ready to answer. And then if you can give them the answer to their question, you have a lot bigger chance of actually keeping people on your site and getting them to book.
That's awesome. The super, really easy to implement advice as well. Also seen some companies are really good at creating content, so they do their own content as well. They see it as a part of it, probably part of their storytelling, but also they are talking about what they're doing in the place, following employees around, or talk with suppliers and stuff like that. And that for me is like quite important, that they actually they have content I can see, and I can see they care so much about their business, they want to document it in a way, because that makes me feel safe. That's one of my buying criteria. Say, okay, they really care, they're going above and beyond to do this as well as run a great business.
Yeah, and I think that that comes back to this storytelling aspect, right? Like you're not just introducing your property. Oh, here, this is my hotel, but you're actually saying maybe this is where we get our organic vegetables and fruits from, or this is our laundry supplier, so they make sure that you have crisp and clean sheets when you come to the hotel, or really whatever it is. And like you say, it shows you care and that you're passionate, and I think that's contagious, right? Like if I see that you're passionate about something, that can get me excited for it too. And I think that's what's great with guests. And they would get excited about your property and book it, or maybe recommend it to someone else.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to say passion, because I think about something I read at some point, and I actually say that a lot to people. Like when we work choosing with clients, we often choose them on, do they have a purpose and do they have a passion? Because if those two goes together, boom, I normally say, then you have a business that really has potential. You just need to unlock that potential. And my job is to find out those obstacles together with you and remove them so you can build that business, because that's unstoppable in a way. It's not just a business, it's something that's bigger than that. And actually, if you can display that to your website, I think a lot of customers will connect with the heart instead of just the mind. And maybe sometimes price doesn't become that important. I know that for myself. There's something I'm not so price sensitive on if I really connect with the heart on things. I think a company that does really well, even though I'm not a customer with them, funny enough, are you saying that, like Patagonia, if you had to go outside hospitality, they are very great of doing that. The purpose and the passion, you can see they are put in the world to do more than sell clothes. That's just a vehicle for being able to be an activist in principle.
Yeah, and I think hotels can really apply that as well, right? A lot of properties already do some great corporate social responsibility work, or work with their local communities, support local suppliers, and if you can integrate that into your storytelling and what you communicate about your property, then you can show that you're not just another hotel or another business, but you're actually part of something bigger than yourself. And like you said, people will be excited about that and be happy to support it.
Going from talking marketing and storytelling, I would like to touch a bit about, it's always great when you had a guest here with a lot of experience to hear a bit about like what they've learned from their journey as well. Because I guess there's some things you would like to have known when you started your career. That's definitely what it is for me. What is the thing you would have liked to know? Because you're taking the journey in hospitality. You've been on the front line, you've been in management position, and then you go out and set up your own business. But what would you have liked to know when you started out way back?
When I started studying hospitality management and then working in like looking for internships and progressing through that education phase, I was a bit, or like my perception of hospitality was a bit limited. Like for me, it was hotels and restaurants, and maybe like, okay, cruise lines, airlines, um, maybe local tourism operators, but really not much else. I didn't think of all the opportunities that there are, like in consulting, or in new aspects like hotel tech, for example. Like there's so much more to the hospitality industry than just the hotel, right? There's so many supporting factors out there and around that. Like you've got your events, you've got your venues, you've got so many different things. So I think it would have been nice to know a little bit more about how big the hospitality industry really is, to maybe find my way into this copywriting slash marketing niche a bit faster. But then again, I'm also happy that I went through all the like the different stages of my career, working for hotels, working in different departments, to actually gain that experience that's now helping me. And I think another good point to know is that like, things take time. Like you need to learn, you need to go through all the different steps to gain that experience that will then help you take the next step, maybe venture out into a different direction. And yeah, not everything has to happen overnight. I think I was in too much of a hurry at sometimes. So yeah.
And we all are at a certain point in our career, and then we find out, which I'm still struggling with, the word patient is very important. You need to stay at some stages to learn to take the next level up or the next part of the journey. Is there, on my journey, there's a lot of people as influencers. What is like your top three people has influenced your journey, and what did you learn from that?
That's a really great question. There's actually been quite a few people who've had a great impact on me and my career and have taught me a lot. Um, Two people that come to mind straight away are my former managers from my last internship. I was working in Bangkok at the Plaza Atene Hotel in the food and beverage department, and the directors of the F&B department were amazing. They invested so much time and energy in teaching me and explaining things to me and answering all my questions. They put me in charge of fantastic projects, and I really learned a lot while working with them. So uh, they were definitely really great. And then another person that was very influential on me, I think, was the founder of the PR agency I worked with in Thailand. I worked with them for several years as their head copywriter, and it was actually my first or my only full time position as a copywriter when I was just starting out. And Karen actually had this way of finding amazing staff, like always people who were top of their field and people who really worked together well as a team. And seeing that was fantastic. And also the way she dealt with clients was really great. And I think taught me a lot in how to build and run my own business. So yeah, I think those are some people who really had a great impact on me and helped me get where I am now.
Well, that's super, yeah, because those people, they plant seeds that sometimes, you don't even know that what they're doing you're going to be using later. And I know that for myself. And then you suddenly stand in the situation and think that was exactly what that person did. Okay, so that's why they're successful. Yeah, it's super interesting. Um, we are now here, Juliana. Unfortunately, in the end of this conversation, but really good. Time has gone really fast. But normally, I always ask the guests to give like some advice to leaders out there, or people in the industry, or people outside the industry. What is your top three advice right now? And you maybe can put the storytelling angle on, or whatever you want to do. But what are like your top three advice out there in this moment of time?
My top advice would be right now to really take some time and focus on what what do you want to say about your business? What do you want people to identify you with and think of when they think of or see your logo, your business, your brand, and your name out there? And then really invest in your storytelling and your presence, like your storytelling internally. How can you bring your team and all your stakeholders on board, and then how can you take that to the outside as well, like by implementing some of the things we just discussed in this episode, and perhaps by stepping up your online presence a bit. Now that doesn't mean that you have to be on all the channels 24/7 everywhere and completely exhaust yourself with that, but perhaps pick one or two places that you want to invest in, and then take that new idea of your story that you have and push that out there consistently to get ready for when people are going to start traveling and start researching their trips again.
This is there's just one question that's like on my mind here on the last bit from the advice you just gave, because we didn't really talk about that during when we touched on storytelling. Is there any companies that, people that thinks I need to double down on this can go and explore, look at, and get inspiration from? Because sometimes that really help to get started.
I think in the high end sector in hospitality, there's Aman Hotels and Resorts. They do a great job with telling their story and just creating a very consistent experience online. So I think that's a great place to look. And then there's also a brand of hostels called Generator Hostels. They have a quite a cool online presence. Like I like their websites and their style about how they address like a younger crowd. They do that quite well. So for hotels like of different price categories, I think you can look at these different brands and just kind of get a bit of an idea of some things that you might be that you could maybe implement at your brand as well.
Super, super. Thank you so much, Juliana, for all your insight, your thinking about storytelling. And I think there's some people out there that's really gonna be asking themselves some questions after this. This is really, really insightful. Where can people find you if they want to follow you or reach out to you to ask you more questions around this?
I think the main place to access some of my resources, I provide some copywriting resources as well for people who want to up their copywriting game on their website or even in their social media. You can find me at hospitality-copywriting.com. That's my website. Or, of course, on LinkedIn as Juliana Hahn. I post there regularly and share any updates. Like if there's anything new that I'm putting out, any new resources, you can always see that there.
That's absolutely super. Thank you so much for coming on. And I send you power, energy, and love to you and your loved ones to get through the last bit, hopefully the last bit of our pandemic.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. And same to you. Best wishes to everyone at your end. And it was great being here.
Thank you so much, Juliana. So many great advice and insight on here, how to boost your storytelling and grow your sales when you're coming back from the pandemic. If you want to get more inspiration on how to become better at storytelling and marketing, please also tune in to episode 81 with Dylan Solanki, UK and EMEA Director at Sprout. We will be discussing in that episode customer loyalty and email marketing. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, please share, rate, review, or subscribe to one of our channels. Tune in next time for another interview, and in the meantime, find out more about it and subscribe to our community and download free leadership tools at hospitalitymavericks.com. And don't worry, if you didn't get all of that, there will be links in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and be Maverick.